Hello, welcome to Charles Talk 4630. I'm Stacy, and joining me today is my partner, Kyle D. And we thank you for joining us today. If this is your first time here, I'm happy you joined us. And I'll be grateful if you decide to join our community today. Thank you to everyone that subscribed and continue to help us grow. This way, you'll be notified whenever we go live or release the latest content. You can also hear us wherever you get your podcasts. And last, please go to your browser and check out more Chargers content from some great writers, along with myself, on stormcloud.blog, which is run by our own Kyle D. Kyle, good morning, and how you doing today?
Doing good, Stacy. I mean, considering everything,
Yeah,
it's not last night did not go how any of
no,
us would have thought. Uh, Even if you predicted the Cardinals were going to pull out a win, I think you would have assumed it would have gone a much different way, right? A more
yes.
explosive game. But I'm hanging in there, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. Kyle, like this is rough, man. So look, let's not waste any time. I want to start off about talking a little bit about the Cardinals because the Cardinals are the ones that shock me, and it goes to saying it don't matter how a team looks, how they've been playing over the last month or so. We know in the NFL, the worst team could beat the best team on any given day. And this was one of those situations where I thought we were so much better, but it turned out not to be the case. But I'm going to start off by giving flowers to the Cardinals because their defense came to play from start to finish last night. They were opportunistic. They had takeaways. And more importantly, they kept the Chargers out of the end zone. 5 field goals. That was the Chargers' points for the night. The only player from the Chargers that was able to claim he showed up on the scoreboard in any shape, form, or fashion was Cameron Dicker. He was 5 of 5 with the longest being a 59-yard on the night. It says an awful lot about what this Cardinals defense did from beginning to the end at the expense of the Chargers, which is a team we knew liked to run the football. They only had 59 yards on the ground. That's an average of 2.7 yards per carry. And I think that's the biggest reason why they didn't get into the red zone or the end zone for that matter. Like the Chargers, all of the injuries that the Cardinals have had on the defensive line and on the defense in general, you knew this was a team that was struggling with their run defense. And it was a question that's been there, I would say, midway through Cliff Kingsbury's 10 years there. It's been a big issue that the Cardinals have had to deal with. And you knew you had to sell out to stop the run because the Chargers want to run the football and do their play action. If you can't stop the run game, they're going to pick you apart. And the Cardinals came out and surprisingly played a more physical game than I thought and really making the Chargers one-dimensional. But also, more importantly, scoreless outside of the kicker. We saw the table flip after that Jalen Reagor fumble. You saw the momentum shift for the Chargers, which went from a forward attack, head down type of approach to a kind of stumbling along the way, just trying to make things happen. And things just never quite clicked for them. And even at the end of the game, I mean, the way the Cardinals offense just took the ball down the field, making big plays, and then just bled out the clock to the last kick was gut-wrenching for us Charger fans. Now, Cal, I've been saying this since week 2. I've been very concerned with the offense. I've been concerned with the injuries, the limited weapons we have at the receivers position, the play calling by Roman, and with every game being a tale of two halves, right? Through week 7, this team has had a total of only 1 touchdown in the second half. And on a night where the defense had a bad night, instead of having 1 bad half, we played the entire game, all 4 quarters, and scored 0 points in the end zone. So is it time to lower the expectations? Your thoughts?
That's a great question, Stacy. And it's coming out on the heels of a lot of fans talking about trade targets, and it's something that I'm going to be writing about at Storm Cloud at some point. You know, who are some trade targets we can go after? We've seen Devontae get shipped to the Jets. We've seen
Yes,
Cooper go to the Bills.
yes.
Is there anybody that the Chargers could pick up right now that could really change the fortunes of this team?
Yeah,
And to be honest with you, what last night showed me is we're not one player away. We
yeah,
might not be 2 players away.
that's
We
right.
need an upgrade at tight end, at wide receiver.
Yes,
I don't know how quickly you can get somebody to fill in for Bradley Bozeman. You can't really pick up a center isn't a wide receiver that can be plugged in and have immediate success for a team. Just simplify what you're doing. Just run
right,
these routes or whatever.
right.
He's got to have cohesion with the team. So that's really tough to try to go target somebody at that position to bring in. And that
Yeah,
might be where we're weakest right now. I hate to say it.
yeah.
Bozeman
It is.
seems like a great person. But I think part of what I haven't had a chance to go look at the film, Stacey, but one thing that I kind of expect to see is miscommunications from the center and the
Yeah.
guards. The Cardinals were masking a lot of things. They would come up and show that they were going to blitz that A gap, but then they would drop their linebackers back in coverage. And that kind of stuff affects the pre-snap calls and reads that the centers are making that we've already seen Bradley not do a great job of that.
Yeah.
Or if it's Justin who's calling it out, but I think it's Bradley. So
Yeah.
we're too many pieces. Depends on what your expectations are. To answer your question, I'd like to see this team make it to the postseason. That's still on the table, I think. I think as we get some of these guys back healthy, I think we have a soft enough schedule. And that's what's the big kicker. We have
Yeah.
a soft enough schedule to keep our expectations for the playoffs afloat. But I wouldn't expect to tear things up when we make it to the postseason. That's a little bit of a reach in my mind.
But wasn't the Cardinals was supposed to be one of those teams that if we were the team that I thought we were, we should have beat Arizona. I've been watching the red zone every week. I've been watching all the games, and I'm watching teams like Arizona's defense up all season. I'm seeing them averaging 150 yards running against that defense. So what the hell happened last night? We have our tackles, we have our guards, we have J.K. Dobbins, but here's what I'm thinking. Like you mentioned earlier, I had friends of mine that called me and said, "Yo, what's up with Justin Herbert, man? Is he regressing? What do you think the problem is?" Because they don't watch Charger games, unless it's playing the team that they root for. And I told him I don't think he's regressing. He's had to deal with some injuries over the last couple of years, and he even injured his thumb last night. Hopefully that don't become an issue and swell up after the game was over. But for the most part, when you look around the league, you look at the Houston Texans, they made the playoffs. They wanted to get better. What did they do? They went and got Stephon Diggs. You look at Josh Allen, Diggs is now gone. And he started out hot. And then the last couple of days, they failed to score because he have a bunch of young, unproven receivers. And they hadn't did anything 2 weeks in a row. And what do? They go get Amari Cooper. The Jets struggling on offense, think they need another weapon. They go get Devontae Adams. Every great quarterback who balls out have at least one of those dudes. Justin don't have one of those dudes. And I'm not making excuses for him. But I mean, come on. We're wondering every week, is Brendan Rice going to play or not? You got Joshua Palmer. You don't know if he's going to be in a lineup or not. He's always getting tackled and he's sidelined. He's holding his forearm. This guy's always hurting. Reagor, I give you, you just got there. You get that big catch and you're so locked in on the touchdown that you just holding the ball so loose and he punches it out. You get an interception from Tia Tart and he wants to go get a touchdown. Boom, they take the ball. And it's like those are basic fundamental things. But my whole point is we were told in the beginning, we are going to do everything we can to take Justin Herbert to the next level. That's what we were told. This was the first game that Justin Herbert actually looked like Justin Herbert. And that was only out of desperation. The team started playing prevent defense because, they don't want to give up a big play. But I mean, I'm saying when you have guys available like a D-Hop or somebody like that can come and make a big difference on that offense, why wouldn't you do it? So, I mean, I know you probably believe that, it's not out the window yet for the playoffs, and you're probably right. It's just that right now, the way I'm feeling right now, it's like if we can't do no better than that, playing against the Cardinals, I don't see how we move forward. They're content with the way things are right now. I'm just stunned by that.
Yeah, I think it comes down to, like we said, how many players you would need to bring on and onboard to really get that offense to be a vision of what you'd like to see it be next year, really, and be productive. Remember, all the guys that we got were on the offensive side of the ball, right? If we were to look at where all of the cap savings came from, it came from mostly Mack and Bosa taking reductions and then releasing guys. I mean, we cut Kendricks, but based on who we brought in and how we've restructured that linebacker room, that's almost addition by subtraction just for this scheme and how we run. But we let go of a lot of offensive spending, and thinking about the guys that we have on the roster right now, we only have Herbert, and I'm not going to count Stick because I think he's on the minimum, but Herbert and Pipkins are the only two guys that are internal players that are on their second contract. And everyone else is pretty much on either their rookie contract or on a cheap prove it deal. Gus Edwards, you could put in that kind of in between category because he's only making a couple million a year. It's a patchwork crew, and that's what we're kind of seeing is what you'd expect. I think the positives, like we've talked about, Stacey, are JK's looking good. He might even be a guy that they consider extending next year. You never know. He's been playing that well.
Yeah.
The bookends are incredible. A lot of times, and this is going to, again, take tape review, but how many times did pressure get to Justin that looked like three guys were getting to him, but really it's because the tackles were rerouting the edges around the bend and Justin didn't have anywhere to step up into. That's the power of having a pocket, man. Like if the tackles want the guys to go to the outside, but if you have an interior rush that is just breathing down Justin's throat, he has nowhere to step. And it makes everybody look kind of bad. So is tight end, receiver, center,
they need that bad.
It's needed. And I don't know if they want to spend their resources in trying to just shore up one of those positions now and hope it works out, as opposed to keeping everything they have and having another very big offseason next season. We'll see.
From what it appears to me, they're content and they're not going to go out and do much of anything else. They're going to ride this out, and then next year you'll have a clean payroll, and then they can do more of what they want to do and bring in the type of players they want to bring in and with contracts and all. But as fans, we just want to win, man. You know, it's only 17 weeks in a season, and we want to win. And you know, these injuries, man. You know, I like Hayden Hurst, but he can't stay healthy. You know, when you're in a situation where Will Dissly is your premier guy that you got to go to, I knew we were in trouble. All of us can clearly see that what we have is not going to get the job done, depending on what your expectations of how far you see them going. Now, my expectations from the beginning, based off of what Harbaugh has done everywhere he's been, is at least get in the wild card and, you know, or win 10 games. That was my expectations. And when I see what I saw last night, listen, you know, I have been saying this offense has been worrying me from the very beginning of the season, but we've been getting bailed out because the defense has been balling out all year. But on one night where the defense had a bad night, it got exposed really bad now, you know, because they wanted to feel a lot last night, because until like maybe the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter, the Chargers couldn't sustain drives. So that defense was tired. But I want to first give a shout out to Alex Barboza, because he had just subscribed to this podcast. So I want to give him a shout out. And one guy hit me last night, or no, this morning, and he asked me this, and it was an interesting question. He asked me, do you think Jim Harbaugh is going to understand or start to realize that this isn't 2012 anymore, and the offense, the way they ran it then, it worked for the NFL now, but maybe we do need a wide receiver because that kind of style can't win in today's game? What do you think about that? I think that's a great question.
Yeah. I think the bigger question is, did Greg Roman actually learn anything like he said he did when he was unemployed for a year? He really harped on how he was studying the league and league trends on that year off he had, and was going to come back with some new wrinkles and a better understanding of how to run a modern offense. Yeah. And we have not really seen any of that from Greg so far.
Yes.
Do you want to blame it on personnel? Do you want to blame it on Greg? I think that's kind of a chicken or the egg type situation. But they did show you that they do prioritize the receiver position this offseason. They just didn't necessarily have the resources to attack it as strongly as they would have liked to. Mm-hmm. But, you know, they traded up to go get Ladd McConkey. That's a guy that they see is really fitting in with this team. Now, are there other options besides Ladd? That's the real question. They went and grabbed Chark on a cheap deal, who's a second-round draft pedigree guy with strong ex-receiver traits, but also gets hurt.
Right.
all the
Haven't seen
time.
them yet. We going into
Yeah.
week 8. We haven't seen them yet. You know,
So will we see that same prioritization next season? Yeah, and I think even a little bit more so. I think we'll see them identify that we do need another receiver at least. You look at Quentin. Quentin's turned it around a little bit this year. So
yeah, I
maybe
could
one
tell
or
he was
two.
kind of missed last night. He really was, and I never thought I'd be saying that, but it made a difference without him there. He's still a big guy. He
Mhm.
still can get yaks after he catch the ball, and just not having him out there, the defense didn't have another option to defend. So I think they missed him last night. And you're asking a lot for Ladd McConkey. He's a little guy. He's a guy that's like a Wes Welker type of guy that could really be big for your team, but he can't be like the focal point of the offense. It's a little guy. If we had some decent receivers on the outside, Ladd McConkey could be an animal. He really
Mhm.
can.
Yeah.
But
The Cardinals had an easy game script against us. If you really think about it, it was just clog the box, sell out against the run, clog the middle of the field a little bit where Ladd would go. And they were able to just force the Chargers to play into their hand because we didn't have a
they were
response.
two things before we end up. Two things with the defense. The score, you look at it and say, hey, you held them under 20 points. That's a good thing. But anybody that watched the game, you seen these guys miss tackle after tackle.
That's true.
This year,
That's true.
they've been great up until last night's game. But last night's game, they were missing tackles like crazy. Constantly. He would throw a ball in the flat and you have a guy right there to make the tackle and he just get right by. So it was bad. I know the score, you held them under 20, but the tackling was really bad last night. And we didn't play basic fundamental football.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been used to seeing that so far.
We left our tackling in baggage claim.
Yeah. The point I want to make about offense and why this is so frustrating for me, and I know there are some Charger fans that only got 10 years in or whatever. I happen to be a big fan of the Chargers throughout Dan Fouts' tenure. And we were the first ones that started this West Coast offense under Air Coryell. Before all of these guys are doing it now, Dan Fouts was doing it in the 70s. And then you go to Phillip Rivers. Well, before Phillip, Drew Brees.
Mm-hmm.
And then from Drew Brees to Phillip Rivers for 16 years in San Diego. And then you went from him to Justin Herbert's first 4 years in the league was better than anybody's.
Mm-hmm.
So to see this team, this offense with Justin Herbert, with all he's done so far, to see them struggle like this is so, so frustrating, man. I never thought the day I would see the Chargers struggle just getting field goals. And this is his first game where he threw for 300 yards. And this is week 7. I'm just, it's just a weird kind of season.
Especially with knowing where we've been with our defense, even with all the spending we've had on defense through scheme and coaching, we haven't been able to do anything on defense. And now we have a coach that's absolutely killing it.
It was just a bad performance. I can't kill the defense because this was the first game that they had a bad performance. I mean, that touchdown that Kyle Murray ran for, Junior Colson took a bad angle, and that's just not knowing who the hell Kyle Murray was. He just took a poor angle, and he ran right by him and just skipped from the 30-yard line to the end zone. I'm like, wow, man, this is what it's going to be like tonight, huh? So we say we know what team going to show. We know what we're going to look like every week, and now it's kind of like, I don't know right now. I don't know what the offense going to look like. We ain't scored no points. And then the defense is struggling now because, they've been on the field too long. So I don't know what we're going to look like right now. But I know if you want to win and you think this is a year that you could sneak in a wild card spot, then I think you need to go pick up a player. And if you don't, I don't know, maybe upstairs maybe they don't think they're a player. Maybe they think that we're just going to get through this year and then we're going to retool things the way we would like. We would have the resources to bring in some big name players. Maybe that's the case. We don't know what they're thinking, but I know I hate losing though. I hate it.
Yeah, it's a bummer for this year, Stacey, but I think we have the pieces in place to have a solid foundation and complete, maybe not fully complete the rebuild. Maybe it's not the Super Bowl run next year, but I do think the offense will look very different when they bring in a little bit more talent in the interior offensive line and really target that tight end position.
Yeah.
Having that tight end position dialed, that could even free up Lad McConkey and Quentin Johnston.
Oh, yes, yes.
That alone could be what gets those guys to where they need to go. But of course, if we should still be looking for another wide receiver to bring in as well. But
Well,
yeah.
answer that question. That last one. I want that guy that sent me that in my inbox. I want that question answered because I thought it was a great one. Um, he knows how in love I was with this regime. He know I was all in on um changing the philosophy of how this team go about trying to win games, which means that you won't see Justin Herbert throwing these 350-yard games and 4 touchdowns. We're going to be running the ball. We're going to be physical. But he was basically saying in the mid 2000s, that's how they won. That's how the NFL was. But the NFL has changed now. It's all about fantasy points and everybody betting, the online betting and things like that. But in the end of the day, you have to score points to win in today's NFL. So yes, be able to have a running game and a decent defense, but you got to also be able to get that ball in the end zone too. And his thinking is Harbaugh is behind, saying that I don't care where the league is right now. I'm sticking to what I know. Is that something that hurts us if he does that? Or do you think Harbaugh understands that you got to be able to put points up? You just can't just beat teams by holding them under 17 points a game. And you have to be able to unleash Herbert.
Yeah, I think we can look at how they handled the draft and determine that they didn't sell out for the running game and defense only. If they would have, they would have done what I wanted them to do, which was draft a center at the
Right.
top of the second round.
Yes.
That those options were available. They could have grabbed Jackson Powers Johnson or Zach Frazier. And
Yeah.
those were the two guys that I was really hoping we were going to trade for.
Yeah.
I like what they did to go get Lad McConkey. So I have no gripes about it. But I
Right.
think that's your answer there, Stacey. They could have gone with a tight end there. There were plenty available still. Your subscribers comment, do we need to, have we overcorrected? I don't think so yet. I think they still tried to provide that juice and firepower at the receiver position. We were just low on resources. I really think next offseason you will see them target those things, that tight end, that receiver, that center. That'll open up the passing game and the running game as well.
Yeah. My final word is my best friend and I've talked to you about him. He's a Baltimore Raven fan. And he told me when we signed Roman, he said, yo, I'm telling you, Justin Herbert not going to be the same. And he kept telling me, and I was wondering, like, is part of it, is he kind of hating on the DL, that we got Greg Roman? My argument is that, hey, listen, well, your man, Lamar Jackson, he won an MVP in his rookie year under Greg Roman. And he constantly went on to say, he was very limited. He was holding them back. They didn't want big time receivers there because it was all about building an offensive line with 2 tight end sets and a running back and letting Lamar, like twice he had led their team in rushing yards. But he said, but everybody thought Lamar couldn't throw the ball, but it was Greg Roman's scheme. He said, now if I see Justin Herbert still be Justin Herbert under Greg Roman, then I could say, you know what, maybe it was Lamar just didn't have the skills from a passing perspective, but he told me Justin Herbert is going to be totally different under Greg Roman. And the first 6 weeks, he hadn't threw beyond 200 yards. And I'm like, maybe he knew what he was talking about, man.
Yeah.
Greg Roman does get creative and he calls some plays that I'm like, wow, that was nice what he dialed up. But it's not consistent. He'll do it. One drive will look good. An 8-play drive, get down there and score. Be like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about, Greg Roman. And then the next one is like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, man, we just can't get no consistency there. So, I mean, I don't know, man. This is the life of being a Charger fan.
The pendulum swings. We have no offense. We have no defense. Back and forth. All right.
Yep.
Hopefully
so
we get it
anything
right.
you want to add before we close out?
No, that's it. I mean, be on the lookout at stormcloud.blog. We'll probably do an article on trade deadline targets soon. Even though, Even though I'm saying we might not go after anybody, still got to write
Yeah.
about it because there's
Yeah,
still some
that's
guys
true.
out there. And yeah, other than that, we'll just catch up later in the week,
Mhm.
previewing the Saints game, and then wish for better fortune there.
Well, that's it for this episode. Thanks for joining us here on Chargers Talk 4630. Thank you to my partner, Cal. Please don't forget to log on to stormcloud.blog if you're looking for more Chargers content. We'll be back later this week to discuss the preview of the Saints against the Chargers. Lord knows how that game will go. But if you haven't subscribed yet, please do that now before you leave this podcast. And as always, be good, be safe, be well, be kind to each other. Leave me alone on X because I bite back. I bite back. Enjoy your weekend and both up.